It's goddamn 14 theory again.
Ladies, gentlemen, and those with the good sense to do away with the whole notion, I welcome you to the premier audio medium for all your Fazbear entertainment needs. The Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast. Note, FFPP is not responsible for any loss of appetite, disinterest, dismemberment, or other legally classified statuses. So strap in and enjoy.
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast. I'm your host of the Toast, Rytos, here to talk about Five Nights at Freddy's, like we always do. I don't have a lot of preambles, so we're just going to get right into it. I've got a lot of questions pulled up. Many of them are from the Patreon, some are from the email. If you are not aware, I take questions both from Patreon and email for this podcast. If you have questions answered at a priority and guaranteed to at least message you, if not put it on the podcast, that's an option that I provide to my Patreon members, which you find the link in the description. But if you just want to send in questions, I do take questions freely from the email, but, you know, I get a lot of questions to the email. Some of them get lost. There's no guarantee I'll answer any of those. But yeah, I pull from both. But we are going to start with our Patreon questions to make good on that reward. Our first question comes from Dylan, he, him. I saw a theory about Midnight Motorist that's had me thinking lately, because I think it's pretty good. The original vid is on the channel Gibby's Horror Homestead under the name FNAF Doesn't Solve Midnight Motorist, but I did. The gist is that he believes you play as Jeremy Fitzgerald, and your son that ran off is actually Jeremy, the child that possesses Bonnie. And those events are what leads to Jeremy to work at FNAF to try to figure out what really happened to his son as he turned a new leaf. Not sure how well it holds up, but I thought it was a pretty cool theory nonetheless. Thoughts? Okay, first of all, thank you for your question. I really don't trust a lot of theories about Five Laps at Freddy's that don't assume that the guy driving the purple car is William Afton. Because, look, I get it. I've heard it 1,000 times. Why is he, like, yellowy orange? Which, again, that's a good question. But consider a purple sprite on that background would be invisible. It would be very, very hard to see. So, you know, there's arguments to be made either way. This is also to consider the only time we've seen William Afton as, like, the purple guy is when he's actively killing people. Whereas in earlier in the game in Freddy Maze, we see that time when he's talking to Susie about to lure her into a back room, and the text is purple and yellow, notably yellow like Spring Bonnie. I've talked about color theory with William Afton a lot. Especially in relation to the FNAF movie. But I genuinely think that William Afton is associated with both yellow and purple. Purple when he's being his sinister, I'm about to kill somebody, William Afton self, but yellow when he's putting on his front to the world, when he's presenting as Spring Bonnie or, you know, being the businessman William Afton everybody knows. And I think that it's notable to consider that William Afton in the first FNAF movie, when he's still Steve Raglan, we're introduced to him wearing a yellow shirt and a purple tie. Literally a yellow exterior with a purple interior. So my explanation for why is he yellowy orange in Midnight Motorist is that's the beginnings of that. That, you know, in this moment, William Afton is just like a drunk, abusive father. He's not the murderer right now. So he's the front he puts on for the world. He's yellow. That's my explanation for that. But to address this theory specifically, let's put aside, the reason I'm so stuck on William Afton being the Midnight Motorist guy is because everything points to it. You know, everything lines up with it in some way. The layout of the area matches what we would think FNAF 4 house would be. The later that night tire tracks leading away from Charlotte having the same rain. Like, there's so much evidence for that. But if we're putting that evidence aside, the narrative of this theory is really cool. The idea of, like, we're getting a look into someone who needs to redeem himself in the narrative, who we later find out, you know, possibly dies at the FNAF 2 location trying to redeem himself. That's a really cool idea. I will say, it gets a little tricky when you consider where and who Jeremy might be. You know, the soul of Bonnie and or the bully. It depends on who we're talking about here. But this theory, granted, I did not watch the video. So this is not a dig on Gibby's theory. I did not watch the video, so this is on me. The premise here seems very vibes-based. It does seem very because how much do we legitimately know about Jeremy? How much do we legitimately know about Jeremy Fitzgerald? Not a lot. So, maybe this game is the thing that's supposed to give us the information, but without any information on these characters, it's hard to link them to a game. Susie and Fruity Maze is a bit easier because of things like Toy Cheek the high school years, which we can link to, descriptions of Susie in the book, there's things that we can link up there. We don't even, as far as I'm aware, again, I did not watch the video, I can't think of any evidence to say that Jeremy Fitzgerald is Jeremy's father. It's one of those things where narratively I like this conceptually, I just don't see it being likely, is where I'm at on it. I'm very admittedly biased against any theories that don't have William Afton being the driver of the car that in 5 Laps of Freddy's is called the Midnight Murderer. Or with a Spring Bonnie antenna cap on it. Especially because of the title too. Now I understand. 5 Laps at Freddy's is not made by Scott Cawthon. It's an official FNAF game, but it's not like a Scott game. So we shouldn't assume out the rip that all the lore in 5 Laps at Freddy's is fully accurate. Because we know for a fact it already isn't. Because of the Hugs billboard. 5 Laps at Freddy's was the first time we got a mention of Edwin Murray with the Hugs billboard, which is important, the vacuum, because even in the story, the original story, Edwin Murray made his fortune by making that, robotic vacuum, making the first Roomba in that way. So that the vacuum being an early invention that went well is present in every version of Edwin Murray, and it's different in every version of Edwin Murray. God, what was it? Was it given a name in the book? I don't think it was given a name in the book. It's the nice thing about having a functional backdrop is I can just go and grab the book. Yeah, it's never named in the book. It's just a robotic vacuum he made that sold really well and made him afford the factory. Because notably in this, Murray's costume manor doesn't exist in the original story, which seems crazy with how intricate and important it is in the games. But yet another reason why the Tales from the Pizzaplex books are not canon. Well, Scott has to be a little trickster about it. They're canon, but they are in a separate continuity from the games. They are just too different. Not only does everything happen differently in this, but the setting is different. He meets, he is inventing in college and makes the robot vacuum in college and opens his own business straight out of college. Whereas in the games, he's kind of a Nepo baby. Edwin Sr. has Murray's Costume Manor, and it's a wildly successful business, to which he then gives it to Edwin Murray, and he bungs it up almost immediately, So, the books and the games are very different in that aspect. But regardless, in every narrative of Edwin Murray, the vacuum is there. In the games, we have the Cleanovac, the cutest thing known to man. In 5 Laps at Freddy's, we have, I think they name it Hug, which is a fun, subtle nod to Mr. Hugs from Trash and the Gang. And in the book, it's just a robotic vacuum that doesn't get directly mentioned. So, all this to say, I hear the argument that 5 Laps at Freddy's should not be taken too directly for lore because we already have a direct example of them being wrong. The fact that they have the billboard of the Hugs vacuum, not a Cleanovac. But at the same time, this game did come out before Secret of the Mimic. They had no way to know. And I doubt that Scott would want to tease something in Secret of the Mimic that far in advance in a demo for a spin-off racing game. So, like, I don't blame them for having, like, a nod to Edwin Murray that mentions the Hug robotic vacuum, but doesn't actually get it right. Because they didn't know what it was, but they're like, yeah, Edwin's got a vacuum. And ironically, funnily enough, if we are to argue about accuracy, it's really funny that there's a billboard for this vacuum in these woods, because it seems very, very likely that these are the same woods that Murray's Costume Manor is actively located inside of. To which Murray's Costume Manor has a billboard for the Cleanovac. So if you want to make the argument about how accurate Five Nights at Freddy's is, they accidentally kind of predicted a billboard for this robotic vacuum in these woods. They just didn't know about Murray's Costume Manor because before Secret of the Mimic, it didn't exist, Look, again, I didn't watch the video, so this isn't critiquing the video specifically, but like, I just think Five Nights at Freddy's is useful for lore, and I think Midnight Motorist, specifically the Later That Night minigame, kind of needs to be about William Afton. It just makes sense. That's my take on that, though. Thank you for your question. The next one comes from Terry and They Them. With the new promo from Steel Wool, as of typing, we've gotten some chickens and glasses, most of whom relate to them as Chica and Monty, thereby Fiona and Edwin. What do you think about the idea of the chickens being hens, like Henry, and the glasses originally belonging to Glamrock Bonnie, like William? Just a thought. Okay, so first of all, Tyrion, thank you for your question. I love where your head's at. Okay, people are gonna flame you for this, but the idea of the chickens being hens, like Henry, is so funny and sounds like something Scott would do. Legitimately, my only pushback isn't even the fact that that's a stretch. My only pushback is that they are ostensibly not hens because of their color pattern. I'm pretty sure. So, like, if I go to Steel Wool, no secrets, no hidden clues, it's getting bad. I typed in Steel in my browser, the URL bar. I typed in Steel, and that tweet was the third recommended. I've visited this damn tweet that many times. So it is a white chicken with a red up top. I don't think hens have this. I could be wrong. No, wait, they do. Wait, so what differentiates a male and female chicken? Hen versus rooster. What's the difference? What's the difference? Okay, so, that's what it is. So hens have a smaller and paler comb, is what it's called, whereas roosters have a large and bright one. I mean, I'm looking at it, I would argue that's a large and bright comb. But fair is fair. It could be a hen. And if it's a hen, Henry was literally called hen in the last game. No, I like where your head's at. I don't think it's likely. I don't. And the fun thing is, I specifically, I'm glad you asked me this question so I could bring it up on this podcast. I'm recording this podcast as of the 4th. I want to make my prediction. Now, let me prove to you this is the 4th. Let me open my phone, okay? Oh, my lock screen is a picture of my children. I don't want to have their image on the internet until they're old enough to know what the internet is. Where's a safe way to show the date? Yeah? Yeah, okay, that's safe. Here's my phone. Okay? Focus. It's not focusing, but you can see. Come on. What if I hold it here? Okay, I can just zoom in. 11/18, Tuesday, August 4th. Okay? And look, I'm moving around. I am not good enough of an editor to fake this, okay? I'm going to risk embarrassment because I'm going to make a prediction for something that's going to happen over this weekend, even though this podcast goes up on the 11th. Unless it's such big news that this gets pushed to the 18th, which could be funny. Okay, so here's my prediction. My prediction is that you're watching this podcast on the 18th. because we've gotten 2, maybe teasers from Steel Wool every other week leading up to this weekend. And what's this weekend? The 12th anniversary of Five Nights at Freddy's. I think we're getting a teaser trailer this weekend for something, for whatever these images are meant to mean. I think we're getting a teaser trailer for something. What will it be? I think I really like my last theory where it's going to be like a smaller, it's like the opposite of Security Breach and Ruin. Now I confuse some people with how I compared that in the video. I didn't mean to confuse people with that, but it was the idea of like Security Breach is this big game set in like the up-to-date Pizzaplex, and then Ruin was a smaller game in the ruined version of it. I think we're getting the opposite of that with the next area. We're going to get a smaller game in the up-to-date version of the place we're going. Musical. Tangent. Real ones will get the reference of, it's a musical. Some of y'all will get that reference. Anyway, a smaller version of the up-to-date location, and then a larger, the game, the next, like, you know, Security Breach, Secret of the Mimic, bop. That one is going to be in the rundown version of it. I think it'll be that. Hopefully it's by the end of this year. Maybe it'll be next year. I don't know. Okay, here's the thing. I don't need them to crank out a game this year. I don't need, as much as I would love a FNAF game every year, I'd rather them take their time and make really good products. So I'm fine with, you know, FNAF games every other year, every 2 years or whatever. What I'm going crazy with is the radio silence in between games. Hey guys, give us a little to work with, like a little bit. I understand. I think a lot of the radio silence comes from a fear of doing a Security Breach again, because they started advertising and dropping teasers for Security Breach before it was done, and then scope creep pushed the game back by like 2 years, so people got really frustrated. But hey guys, guess what? Security Breach is your like highest selling game of all time. Go on Google Trends right now, type in like Five Nights at Freddy's 1, type in, and like the game, not the franchise, type in Security Breach. Security Breach dwarfs it. So like the marketing worked. The marketing, you got people angry on Twitter, but the marketing clearly worked. So I don't know. I just want some kind of thing to talk about. If you give us stuff to talk about, we can talk about stuff, and then we do advertising for you. Isn't that super cool that you have this online fandom that will do all this free marketing for you if you just give us shit to talk about? Anyway, my official prediction is that on Saturday, August 8th, we are going to get a teaser trailer. And if that happens, I'm going to probably make a podcast in theory about it that next week, which means this podcast episode will be going up on the 18th, or you're seeing it on the 11th because nothing happened and I was wrong. We'll find out. But yeah, I'm glad you asked that question because I wanted to bring that up now before I forgot, because I forget a lot. But thank you for your question, Tarian. And to wrap back to your question, I think you're wrong, but I love where your head's at. Our next question from Haley, she, her. What is the FNAF game you would want to see? For example, I would love a strict horror game where we are a child trapped in the original Freddy's after being lured by Afton. We know Afton likes to play and torment his victims, at least in Silver Eyes one does, so it would fit into a horror game. To me, the scariest scene of FNAF was the ending of Pizza Party, where we realized we were a child who was lured and killed. Whether we die or escape or an MCI victim, it doesn't matter to me. But he would use hallucination gas or purely torment us with a suit. It'd be cool to see. And you know, you will go on to show your husband's perfect idea or perfect FNAF game as well. I love those. I've said it before. I already have my perfect FNAF game is utilizing a character that I think is horrifically underutilized, that being Ennard. I think it's really compelling and interesting that it's Ennard resting that we see after Sister Location. Ennard is kind of loose. You know, like Ennard gets out there with the Michael suit. Michael starts to decay, so Ennard flees to the sewers and is just out there somewhere. I think that is the perfect spot for a horror game from a kid's perspective. Here's my pitch, okay? And you could even try to style it in Five Nights if you wanted to. But you're like a kid who was like out past curfew, and it's midnight now, and you need to sneak back home. But while you're heading back from like the playground or wherever you were like bumming around with your friends, you hear a rustle in the bushes. You shine your flashlight over there and it reflects off of something. And then you see a mask. And then you start running. It's a stealth survival game where you're trying to sneak your way past home in this like suburban Utah neighborhood. Meanwhile, Ennard is lurking in the shadows and bushes. Maybe even like the climax of it being you're one house away, but you're hiding in like the tree house of your neighbor's backyard. And you have to like do a sit and survive in that tree house or something. I don't know. I think that's such a really awesome setting for a FNAF game. And it would utilize Ennard, who needs to be fucking utilized. Like, oh my god, Ennard is such a cool character and we don't get to hear about him because he's in the narrative for like 10 seconds until he splits into Scrap Baby and Molten Freddy. And Molten Freddy's infinitely less cool than Ennard is. Scrap Baby's still pretty cool though. But that would be my perfect FNAF game. I think I've said that exact game before. But I'm sticking to my guns. I really want that. Thank you for your question though. Our next one comes from Stina. They, them. Who is Dispatch in Secret of the Mimic? Like the actual employee that sent Arnold to MCM. I don't think it was F10N4/M1. I think it was William. He'd have access to all the engineers for Fazbear, their work hours, and field locations, and he seems like the type who would not care how many bodies need to be thrown at a problem to fix it. Thank you for your question, Stina. It is an interesting like prompt of like, who is Dispatch? I tend to believe that Dispatch is a separate employee. So my logic being, I think it's on purpose that Andy Fields was cast to play Dispatch. Because I think in Secret of the Mimic, Dispatch is a human. But I think we're also seeing that the Mimic learns and is able to replicate his voice. So I genuinely think the reason that Dispatch sounds like Hand Unit is because after Secret of the Mimic, Fazbear starts using the Mimic recreation of Dispatch's voice for their handheld devices. So because of that, and like I think it makes sense. It's a fun through line. It doesn't really change the narrative too much, but it's like a fun meta thing. It's like, of course, in this company that's utilizing an AI that like replicates things, they would copy their dispatcher's voice. The thing is, though, Hand Unit's voice first appears in Sister Location. I don't think that's an accident. I think that's very relevant to how close that game is to Secret of the Mimic location and proximity-wise. But in Sister Location, Hand Unit's voice still sounds like Dispatch. But we hear William Afton's voice. It's the first game we get to, and we hear his like gravelly British accent. So in the same game, we're getting the voice of the Mimic copied from Dispatch next to William Afton, and they're very clearly two distinctly different voices. Now, you could make the argument that William Afton is calling the shots, and I think that's very true. But I don't think William Afton is Dispatch. Like, that's the thing. Dispatch is doing his job. I don't think it's Dispatch's idea to be sending random people to Murray's Costume Manor. I think it's William Afton's idea. I think he's just having Dispatch be the one to do it. It was like William Afton's co-owner of the company. He is too busy to be dealing with calling random engineers to send them to MCM. He's doing, I don't know, whatever William Afton does on the weekends. Kill a kid, probably. But that's my thinking anyway. I think Dispatch is just another employee at Fazbear, even though William Afton is definitely the one calling the shots. I try not to. I'll try to keep it like mostly stationary, but I do need a cough drop. Our next question comes from Bo, he, him. Alright, my question is, in the Puppet Theater, why does the White Tiger repeat lines from Edwin, such as, "You're not him, stop sounding like him, and I was always going to fix you"? My thoughts was always the White Tiger seemed like clearly David was possessing it, and it's him manifesting its image, but it also makes me question whether, 1, the White Tiger is a real suit, 2, the Mimic is wearing the White Tiger suit, or 3, is David possessing M2? Thank you. So I reviewed the footage, and that I don't think that's what's happening. So if you watch, playthroughs of it with no commentary or like clean footage of it, White Tiger does show up and look at you in the puppet theater and then disappear. In that moment, it doesn't say anything. It just looks at you. Now, while you're in the puppet theater, you hear David's laughter, and you'll hear those lines you're talking about. They're like, "You're not him, stop sounding like him." But I think those are two distinct things, because David's laughter is like echoey and very like human sounding and very real sounding, whereas the lines are specifically very digitized. They sound like the mimic is speaking them. So what I think is actually happening here is that the White Tiger shows up and gets a look at you, and then you hear its laughter as it disappears. Because I think the White Tiger is David's ghost manifested. I think he just wants to play, and he sees a new playmate coming to the factory. So he's taking a look at us. We seem friendly, so he starts laughing. Maybe David even stays to watch the puppet show. I mean, I'm sure he would like it. Whereas the lines we're hearing, I think, are from the mimic talking to itself while trying to find us. I don't think the mimic is in the stage area at that point, but like, think about it. It was in the room just before the stage area. So I think it's starting to head over to get to the stage area to mess with it. And in the distance, we hear it talking to itself, doing those "you're not him, stop sounding like him" lines. That's my explanation for it. Is I don't think the White Tiger is the one saying those lines. Because both times the White Tiger shows up, you get that big flash and then it goes away. And then sometimes you hear lines after it, but you never hear lines while it's appearing. I think those are two separate things happening. But thank you for your question. And our last Patreon question of the day comes from Udabutta, him. I hope it's okay to ask this sort of question. It is, that's why I put it on here. But I've been meaning to start a theory channel on a different franchise, on my own from scratch. Do you have any tips on how to start? And a bit more than that, how do you deal with toxicity and or willful ignorance from fandoms? Otherwise, just want to say, and this is being very nice to me. Well, thank you for that. Yes, I've got tips. Now, genuinely, anybody who wants to make content, I've got two huge recommendations. First of all, start off with, now this is more for streamers, but there's things everybody can take away from it. I would genuinely check out, Ludwig was recently on Streamer University and did 3 classes. And then after it was done, he took his 3 classes that were recorded and made them one long video on his channel. Go watch it. Genuinely, go watch it. Now, again, it's more aimed at streamers than like just general content creators, but there is things to learn for everybody from those videos. I like the things he said about intros and thumbnails and things like that. I'm actively trying to take into my brain. I also really recommend the channel Stream Scheme. When I was first getting started, I watched a lot of LJM, the guy behind Stream Scheme. I watched a lot of his videos on tech tips and, ideas and motivation, things like that. So my first recommendation is listen to people who are more qualified than me to talk about this. Other general tips, I would say more than anything, make sure you're doing something you absolutely adore, absolutely love, and could talk about forever. Because sometimes you got to talk about the same thing forever. But luckily, if you love the thing, then it's okay. Because at the end of the day, it's going to be a while. I mean, statistically, it'll be a while. There's a chance you blow up right away. Who knows? But statistically, it takes a long time to start gaining traction. And if you're doing something you don't really like just to gain traction, it's going to make it very frustrating very quickly. But if you love these things and you want to do them anyway, then it's a win-win. You get to do something you love, and maybe someday it'll start gaining traction. That's kind of a platitude. That's like a nice saying. As far as tangible advice, frequency of uploads isn't as important as consistency of uploads. And what I mean by that is, if you upload randomly 5 times a month, you will grow slower than if you upload the same exact time 2 times a month. And that's just a fact. People like knowing when things are going to be uploaded, especially if you're making scripted content, which it sounds like you are. So if uploading every single week is less important than uploading at the same time every time you upload. So if you don't think you can make a weekly video, that's fine. But make sure the videos you're posting are at the same time every time. That's why every single one of the theories on this channel gets uploaded at 2:15 p.m. EST on Friday every single week. Because that's the time that I had the most success with, and I'm sticking to that time until I die. That's why the podcast tries to be out at 11 a.m. I try to aim for that consistency because that's what's really important. Frequency just changes the speed of your growth more often than not, right? Like if you upload more frequently, you theoretically should grow faster if you're keeping consistent and making consistent quality. Other tangible advice, audio is more important than video. I would make sure your audio is as good as it can be before worrying about your video being like your footage being as good as it can be. You don't have to be a face content creator. Like you don't have to show your face, but you do need something. That is to say, if you don't want to show your face, get like a PNG tuber setup or a VTuber setup or something like that. Like people need to attach an image to a voice. It doesn't need to be your face, but it needs to be something, and, I feel like anything else, I'm getting into the weeds of it. To address the second half, how do you deal with toxicity and or willful ignorance from fandoms? Well, luckily, I'm in the FNAF fandom, and there's absolutely no toxicity in the FNAF fandom, especially on Twitter. To give some actual advice, though, you gotta ignore it. It will eat at you. It really will. My best advice is to just try to ignore it. Don't look at comments on your videos after the first couple of hours. That's genuinely my best advice. The first couple hours, most of the comments will be either positive or genuine feedback because the people who get served your videos and want to watch them. But a week later, you're going to get random comments from random people who've never seen you before. And if you take them to heart, it will eat you alive, And, as far as when you said willful ignorance from fandoms, that, I'm going to be honest, Ada, that makes me a little concerned for your attitude going into this. That willful ignorance from fandoms. So the reason that's kind of a red flag for me is because you're saying you're starting a theory channel from a different franchise. To me, when you say, how do you deal with the willful ignorance from fandoms, that sounds like you're saying that some of the theories you're going to propose are basically true, and if people disagree with them, they're being willfully ignorant. That's really strong language. I would recommend, if you're being a theory channel, to remind yourself that they are just theories. And if people disagree with your theories, that's their right. It's a theory. But that's me putting words in your mouth. I'm not saying you said that. That is a little bit of a red flag. I think you'll probably have an easier time being a theory channel if you keep reminding yourself that, hey, there's a reason game theory says it. It's just a theory. But yeah. I would say, as far as toxicity, just ignore it. That's all you can do. Just try your best to just let it go and not think about it, and remember that the words people say to you online are not real. The people in your real life, that's real. But thank you for your question, and hopefully there was some helpful advice in there. That's all my Patreon questions for today, so we're going to move over to the email. Once again, if you want your questions answered on a priority, you can submit them through the Patreon, which is in the description. But if you want your questions submitted regardless, I do still take them from email, from Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast at gmail.com, which is in the description to copy and paste because it's a pain to type out. Our first question comes from Jason, him. Is there a possibility that Jackie shows up in the next FNAF game? And do you think either the Chica person or Freddy person, one of the bullies with Michael, will be the main character for the next game, since Michael was the one for Sister Location, and Bonnie Bros for Help Wanted 2? Who do you think is next? Thank you for your question. I included both of your questions here because the second one is kind of quick. And it was, do you think either Chica person or Freddy person, the bullies from, the people who lifted the crying child in the mouth of Fredbear, will be in the next game? I think the Chica bully will be. I think that's a pretty safe guess. And the reason why is because we already got the Freddy bully, in my opinion, in Oswald's dad. Now, it's never directly stated that Oswald's dad is the Freddy bully. But it's interesting that in the books, we get a lot of talk with Oswald's dad where he knows what happened with Freddy Fazbear's, and he does not like it. It disturbs him to remember it. Which, like, you know, okay, so he was around that time when Freddy Fazbear's was open in some way. And we get to see that, like, he knows something happened. He seemed to be deeply disturbed remembering it. And, like, that's not enough to say he was the Freddy bully. But what's interesting is that in the Into the Pit game, when you open the attic door, there is a rare chance for a Freddy mask to fall from the attic door, and it is never explained why. And, like, in an age where we got the Bonnie mask one game before, seeing a Freddy mask in the possession of the Oswald family, to me, says that Oswald's dad might have been the Freddy bully. It might have been that he knew what happened because he was a teenager when Fredbear's was open, and he was messing around. The crying child got killed, and then he heard about what happened at Freddy Fazbear's a couple years later. So I genuinely think Oswald's dad is the Freddy bully, which leaves the Chica bully, right? I guess, and the Foxy bully. No, that's Michael. Yeah, Michael's Foxy. I believe Cassie's dad is the Bonnie bully, because of the Bonnie mask in Help Wanted 2. I think that's what you're bringing up as well. I believe Oswald's dad is the Freddy bully because of the mask in Into the Pit, which leaves the Chica bully. And we keep getting so many Chica things coming up that I think the next main, like, new character we meet is gonna be the grown-up Chica bully. And that, like, in this narrative, we're seeing the bullies from the past get their karma years down the line, which is kind of a fun narrative to go with. Because, like, we got Chica's Secret Party, we got Chica and Secret of the Mimic, we've got the chickens in that one teaser. We still have never had a good explanation for Chica Chowder. And maybe if we're getting a lot of water, we're finally going to get that explanation and meet the Chica bully that way. Now, I think the next game is going to be the Chica bully. That being said, next point, is there a possibility Jackie shows up in the next FNAF game? You'd think so, wouldn't you? Jackie is so damn weird, dude. Jackie is so damn weird. Because, like, she's just one of the characters from Murray's Costume Manor. The marketing was really focusing on her, but I think that was partially as to not spoil what the Mimic looked like. Partially because the Mimic is not very marketable, because he's just an endoskeleton. And partially by the fact that Jackie's just a very good, iconic design, so it's a good feature to be the marketed character. But it's weird that Jackie's, like, kind of the puppet. And that still doesn't have a good explanation why. That there's just... Jackie's just kind of the puppet. And that's weird. So I feel like that thread might be touched upon in a future FNAF game. I don't think Jackie herself will be showing up anytime soon, but I do think it's rather likely that if we ever get to see, like, sister location in the modern time, or go through old files from Murray's Costume Manor or whatever, we might get to see, like, why Jackie and the puppet are so similar. I think our best explanation is, like, when we're in that last office, is the alt Fazbear designs and the alt puppet design, or, like, alt marionette design or whatever, and we can't access them. But what my guess is that they saw Jackie and were like, we want one of them. Can you make us a marionette? Or something like that. I don't know. That's my best guess, because, like, they're so similar for no reason. Something weird is up with that. But thank you for your question. And our last question comes from Sylvie. She. One of the major confusions about the story of FNAF, and one people debate to this day, is how many dead kids there are. Is the DCI real, or is it a continuation of the MCI story? Are the missing people in the newspaper and the Gregory Lee vending in Security Breach adults or children? Are the toys haunted? Are the fun times haunted? Are the mediocre melodies haunted? Are the freaking Rockstar animatronics haunted? In reality, the only 100% confirmed child deaths we have are the 5 MCI victims, the bite victim, and Charlie potentially being a part of them, as well as Elizabeth, and now David. So if you try to lowball it, the absolute minimum number of potential dead kids is 7, 8 with David. But it could be hundreds if highballed with the fun times and potentially toys. So my question, why did you call me your pharaoh? I'm much too white to be a pharaoh. The words specifically in this email, I didn't see this. So my question to you, Rye, my pharaoh, I'm way too white for that. Is how many dead kids do you think there are in Five Nights at Freddy's? Thank you for your question. You can just call me Rye. It's tough, huh? I'm a DCI truther. I don't think the DCI went to possess anything. I'm still really in my idea that the DCI was William's desperation to prove possession. In other words, he did the MCI and he was trying to observe any kind of behavior and it didn't quite work. So he put on the Springlock suit and killed kids in front of the possessed animatronics to see if they'd react. And they did, right? Like we see in Save Them, they try to stop William Afton and he somehow single-handedly defeats an animatronic bear, which is crazy. But, you know, he gets his proof. They're moving. It works. So I do think the DCI does happen, which brings us, let's count, right? So Crying Child, duh. Elizabeth, yeah. Charlotte, yeah. David, yeah. 5 MCI, yeah. So that's, wait, is that 9? Did I say 8? Yeah, that's 9. Bite victim, Charlotte, Elizabeth, David, MCI. If we are to assume that the Cassidy, the 5th Golden Freddy victim, is separate from these characters, which I think they have to be. Now we're adding 5 more with the DCI, because the DCI has 5 sprites to make your 5 bodies. So now we're at 14 dead kids. Okay, stick with me. Let's go through the other options, right? The Funtime animatronics. Now, I'm a Molten MCI truther. I think the Funtime animatronics have the remnant of the MCI victims inside of them. That being said, it is worthwhile to point out that they did do private parties after Circus Babies never opened. And they are still programmed to kidnap kids. So there is a potential of dead kids associated with the rental process of the sister location animatronics. Who can say? I don't think the toys are haunted. I don't think the Mediocre Melodies or Rockstar animatronics are haunted either. Cassie is probably alive. I feel like that'd be really cruel to introduce her character and kill her off instantly. I feel like they're usually pretty reasonable with their named child characters. But, I mean, she might be dead. If Cassie's dead, that's an even 15. I just realized why this number is so familiar. MCI, DCI, Charlotte, Elizabeth, Crying Child, David. It's 14 dead kids. It's goddamn 14 theory again. Fuck! They just keep coming up 14. Genuinely, though, I think that's the number I'm at, is 14 right now. That's my take anyway. You know, take it or leave it. But thank you for your question. And again, if you want your questions answered on the podcast, you can send them in through Patreon with the link in the description, or Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast at gmail.com, which is also in the description to copy and paste because it's a pain to type out. But until next time, as always, thank you for watching the Freddy Fazbear Pizza Podcast, where the pizza abilities are endless. We hope to enjoy your future patronage. Bye-bye for now.